Welcome to the Second Mess Podcast, one-stop shopping for Norwich nostalgia, networking, and news from the Hill. Stand by for your host, Randall H. Miller.
Last time you were on, you were prepping for the murder case, which is now taking place, and the murderer, no longer alleged, he got life in prison, right?
He did. He got life in prison. Yes.
What was the background of that case, and what was your role?
So, I, as a detective, sometimes you get called in on a regular shift. Like, that's just the way life goes. And it was an Easter Sunday. I'll never forget this. It was Easter Sunday. And I got ordered in on a midnight shift of all the shifts to get ordered in on. And I said, oh man, I got to work the road. And I'm like thinking to myself, man, who's going to put the Easter baskets for the kids? So I remember saying to one of the young cops, I said, do you mind coming in at like 5 a.m. for me so I can run home and put out the Easter basket for the kids? He's like, Cal, no problem. I got you. So I'm working the shift. It's me. It's a brand new police officer. So he's in the cruiser with me. And then I got another cop that just got off of his FTO. Sorry about that. He just got off his field training. So he'd been on less than maybe 6 months. And so at 4:46 in the morning, I'm heading back to the station, getting ready. I actually saw the patrol officer who was coming in for me for 5. He was in town already, driving to the station, and dispatch called and said, hey, we have a woman here at the station. She's covered in blood. And I said, what? And they were like, yeah, she's covered in blood. And I said, okay. So I get there, and this woman walks out, and she is literally head to toe covered in blood. Her fingers are almost severed off. She had burn marks all over her. And I'm like, she's in utter shock. And I just remember I sit her down, and I'm just talking to her, and she's telling me that an intruder was in her home. She had been tased. He had pulled a firearm on her. She had fought for her life. And during that altercation, she believed she had stabbed him, and she shoved him out a window. Now, I'm not going to lie. In my brain, I was like, wow, that's a lot going on in one small period of time, right? Like, what do you mean? He had a taser, and he had a gun, and you stabbed him? And there was he had a bag with handcuffs in it. It was just, kind of unbelievable, to be honest. And so we get her packaged. She gets shipped to a hospital. I head to the scene, and I remember pulling up to the crime scene, and it was utter chaos. There was, blood everywhere. Definitely altercation had taken place. We had located the firearm and the taser. So now we're piecing things together. And I'm like, man, this kid's not lying. But when I spoke to her, I remember asking her, do you have any enemies? Who would do this to you? And she had no one. She had no one. And she had told me that she dated a boy. And they had broken up a couple months ago. They had worked together, but they were very amicable. And I remember before she got onto the ambulance, before they put her on the ambulance, I said, what is his name? And she gave me his name. So we're in the house, we're standing there, and we got nothing. It's Easter Sunday morning. There's no camera footage around. No neighbors had camera footage. You find the gun, you find the taser. You're like, holy shit, this really happened, but we really got nothing. So I remember saying, ping her phone, let's ping her phone, because she had told me he took her phone from her. And I was like, let's ping her phone. Her phone hits up in Bow, New Hampshire. And I remember being like, what?
Now, when you guys ping a phone, how does that work?
So it has to be emergent, which obviously this was, right? Because we thought we might have had in my course of action and my investigation, I thought he might be dead on the roadside, because, in her discussions with her,
she said she stabbed him.
She stabbed him, right? So I'm like, oh man, we might have I had called all the local hospitals. We put out be on the lookout for anyone coming in with a stab wound. We got nothing, we're a couple hours into this investigation. I said, man, we might have a dead body in the woods somewhere. We really need to just ping her phone. So that's an emergent thing. And you go through, you run their number, you find out who their cell phone carrier is. You contact the emergency law enforcement hotline through their cell phone carrier. And that cell phone carrier opens up where the phone is hitting off a tower, right? So her phone is hitting off a tower in Bow, New Hampshire. Basically, they were able to, we have specialists that can pinpoint where that phone is in with 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I call Bow, New Hampshire PD. Bow, New Hampshire goes out and they search. Long story short is they find the bag. Her phone's in it. The knives from the house are in it. There is duct tape, handcuffs, you name it, in this bag.
Did
And
they
so
use
I'm
a
like,
dog for that?
no, they just went out. I said it should be between here and here. This is what the specialists are telling me. It should be between this area. And they went out and they couldn't find it. Then they went back out with like 4 more people, and they were able to find the bag. And I was like, holy shit! Like we got the bag now. Where is the suspect?
Mm-hmm.
So now we got a bag, and during this whole thing, we're like, we have nobody. And I remember just saying, you know what? For shits and giggles, let's ping the phone to the guy she said that she used to date. It was the only name we had. Son of a bitch, it pinged in 11 p.m. in the neighboring town, which he would have no reason to be in that area. And
so close to where the bag was found.
No,
Next
close to
town
her
over.
home.
To her home. Okay.
So now, circumstantially, he's there at 11 o'clock on Saturday night before the assault took place at 4:15 Easter morning, Sunday morning. So you now have time frame of why is he here?
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously investigatory wise, we contact the parents, no show for Easter Sunday, borrowed dad's car. His phone is off. We can't find him. Don't know where he is. Right. So now my brain is like, this is it. I just exited stage left and I just started following the facts, right, to that human being. And I remember we had nothing. I looked at the highway, in the investigation, you looked at like all the highway monitors and all that stuff, like transponders going through, crickets. And in my brain, I'm like, this kid is dead in the woods. I truly believed he was dead in the woods somewhere. And no, I remember the Bow, New Hampshire lieutenant goes, you ever think about checking the Canadian border, Kelly? And I said, no, I didn't, but we're going to do that. And lo and behold, he's coming through the Derby border into Canada, about 3 hours and like 25 minutes, about that, give or take. He was humming, and he goes through. He's got a flak vest, not a weighted vest. He's got a full-fledged flak vest. He was brought into secondary, asked where he's going. Didn't really have an answer, had a significant amount of cash on him, had a brand new like t-shirt on and this flak vest, and was very frazzled. And they said, come on into Canada.
Really?
So, yes. Yeah.
Well, they are friendly people.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
When we talk about systematic failure, it was definitely a frustration for me in law enforcement that he was able to easily access another country. So by the time I caught up to him, he had already touched down in Cancun, Mexico. He had boarded a plane in Montreal, one-way ticket, purchased. He was in Cancun 6 hours after this incident.
Right. Yeah.
Now, obviously, I asked to go to Cancun, and I was told no. So I did. I said,
not in the budget. Not in the budget.
Yeah. Like, can I board the plane? Like, this is my case. Like, I want to follow it. So now I have the FBI involved. I have the Homeland Security involved. We have the U.S. Marshal's Office involved. We had the Joint Terrorism Task Force because of some other stuff that was going on. So we had like a huge, and during this,
when that, let me interrupt there. Sorry. When that happens and you're working with all those other agencies and egos and stuff, now you're the lead detective on this. Are they letting you do your thing?
I did my thing, whether they liked it or not.
Okay.
I really did my thing. Were there words? Oh, yes, there were words spoken multiple times, but that wasn't going to deter me because, I was this was my case from day one. And I felt, when I tell you, I spoke with her almost every day. I met with her. I brought her through the court and the restraining order. I would talk to her. She was absolutely terrified. And especially when I had to sit her down and tell her who it was that attacked her. I remember her asking me, am I safe? And I had said to her, you're not safe until he's in custody, but you're a pretty girl. You need to go out and live your life. Because as far as I know, he's in Mexico and I have an Interpol warrant on him. So when he crosses the border, I've been authorized to fly wherever he is coming in the country and take him into custody. I was like, and that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put him in handcuffs and I'm going to take him into custody. So on June 27th, I had this conversation with her and I was like, Amanda, you need to like live your life. You have to go back out and live your life because honestly, like being holed up and letting him take control. And while he was in Mexico, he was sending her stuff over the internet and terrorizing her. So, and when I say I was meeting with her and speaking with her, we had a very good rapport. We had a very good relationship. So fast forward to that June 27th conversation. I said, go out and live your life. You got to start living your life. So she did. And she signed up for a book club meeting for July 3rd. I actually was home with my children. There's a big fireworks display in the area I live in. And I got a call from Worcester Homicide on July 3rd saying, do I know a Carlos Asencio? And I said, I do. And they said, well, we think he's in our city. I said, there's no friggin' way. It's my Carlos Asencio because he would light up like a Christmas tree if he crossed the border. And they said, can you identify him? I said, yes, 100% I could identify him. So they sent me a photo of him and my heart just sank. And I said, well, what is he under arrest for? And he said, well, he has stabbed several people in a restaurant. And I said, well, who? And at that point, there was, we talk about like facts, like being just screwed up. They were right in the middle of like the investigation. Mm-hmm. And I think they had 3 people injured and just a lot of people were in the restaurant. So they were just trying to figure it out. And when they figured out who he was, he obviously hit because I had 14 warrants against him. So he must have lit up like a Christmas tree as soon as they figured out who he was. So I'm the detective on the case. They call me, ID him. I ID him. So they end up calling me back and telling me it was Amanda. He had entered a restaurant that she was at a book club meeting at. She was leaving the restaurant. And upon her leaving, he saw her. He runs across the restaurant. He pulls out 2 knives and he stabs her 52 times in front of
in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Is what the write-up said.
It's about 15. I've watched it. I've watched the surveillance video.
God. Oh.
And it was horrifying. And, her last words were, I thought he was in Mexico and I will never live that down. And so, I was, my case, because she died, right? She didn't have a voice anymore. So this is what I teach in the academy, how important it is about report writing, how important it is to write every single thing you do. You need to document all your conversations you have with victims, suspects, parents, anybody needs to be documented because they took my 95-page report and they were able to build, a significant case against him because his thing was he was crazy, right? Like that was his, when he went to trial, he was saying that he did that and he was not sane when he did it. Well, if you look at my case, the way that he went about attacking her, stalking her, and going to Canada and getting to Mexico and having a plan, and he had practiced cutting windows open, and he had, when I did the search warrant, he had, window cutters and duct tape, like. No, he practiced. Okay. Someone who is insane does something without
spur of the moment. Spur of the moment.
Yeah. Spur of the moment. Like, and so, my case was able to prove that he was not insane. Like he had pre-planned the entire thing. He was methodical about it. And
what I thought was interesting was in one of the articles I read on that case was that they gave him a psych eval. But that particular test, the psych eval, and I didn't know these existed, is one that it was created to tell if somebody's trying to act like they're crazy when they're not crazy. And I was like, whoa, mind blown.
Right. And, I just think that he was just so methodical in what he did that there is no way. He was obsessed with her. He was absolutely obsessed with her. And when she broke up with him, and like they only dated for a short time, he couldn't get over that fact. And, it was probably one of the most devastating blows I've had as a domestic violence officer, because I'm supposed to help. And sometimes, and not that I want to be callous about it, but like sometimes victims and you look at them and you're like, man, they're gonna get killed. Like you just know it in your heart. You're like, oh, this is like such a bad situation. This was so out of the blue that it really took me out by my knees. Like, here I am. I told the kid 4 days before, go out, live your life. And then I just sent her to her death. And that was a big
but you were giving her reasonable advice, though. You can't, I mean, I'm sure you've gone to and spoken to therapists and stuff about all this kind of stuff. It's like, you can't beat yourself up over that.
I did. I teach trauma and PTSD, and this case gave me PTSD. It really did. Man. And it was something that bothered me for a long, long time. And I'm at peace with it now. I've met with her parents multiple times. Her sister, I was at the trial when they found him. I testified in the trial. I was able to go, and it sucks too, because when you're going through a big trial like that, you can't sit through it because I have to testify. So even after I testify, I could be recalled to that. I wanted closure and being able to watch the other people, especially the therapist, testify, but I couldn't even be in there. So, but I got closure.
He was methodical enough. He was going to find her no matter where she was.
I agree with that 100%. It took me a little while, Randy, to get there.
I'm sure it's easy for me to sit here, talking to you on Zoom when I didn't see any of the blood or any of that stuff.
And you know what? And you do get personal with these people. Like they've had, they're looking to you for assistance. They're looking to you to get their lives, because women who are in a traumatic incident, like a sexual assault or domestic violence, like that trauma never goes away from them. They just learn to have a different life. Right. So she was looking for someone to guide her to be able to move forward. And here I am giving her this advice, right? On like, you have to move on with your life, like therapy or whatever you have to do. And literally I said, holy shit, I sent her out. I sent her, literally was like, go out. And she signs up and then she gets murdered. And I said, oh my God, it was one of the most shittiest situations. And I only know of one other police officer who's been through that and who was helping a victim of a domestic violence situation. And he's the first person I called because he knew where I sat. Because very rarely do you have someone that you are working with hand in hand get murdered like that. Like it just, they're few and far in between. Like you go to murders, you go to motor vehicle accident where people die and tragedies happen, right? But when you're invested in trying to get someone safe and trying to like assist them in a traumatic incident, and all of a sudden they get killed during that, it sucked. It really sucked.
Here's the big question. With an Interpol red notice and all of the things you had to catch this guy, as soon as he popped up his ugly head, how the hell did he get back in the country?
Well, do you know what the U.S. Marshals told me? Kelly, we have a problem on the southern border, don't you? Jesus. And I just literally had to do everything in my power.
Did he come through a checkpoint?
Not to tell someone to go jump off,
Do they know if he came through an official checkpoint or if he walked in with everybody else?
He did not come through an official area.
Wow.
No, he illegally got into the country.
I'm trying to act like I'm shocked.
You and me both.
Wow.
You and me both.
Yeah.
And when you're told that when you call that person, that you were working with, and I remember them telling me, like, it's not a priority case. It's not tied to a dead body. It's not a priority case, and which I get that, right? The U.S. Marshals, they're busy, but like I had everything wrapped in a pretty bow. It was, I'm not gonna lie, like I did a pretty damn good job of wrapping up this case and knowing where he was, kind of in the country of Mexico. Like, it can't be that hard to find. Like, can't you send some people just to go pick him up, you know? And but you know, it wasn't on their priority list. And like we, you know, we all got bosses too, right? So do I think the system failed her? 100%. I do. From yeah, the system definitely failed her. And you know, what bothers me the most is she fought for her life in April when I first met her, and she couldn't fight a second time. And that was definitely a hard pill to swallow. Yeah, it
How was
sucked.
it? How was your time on the witness stand in that trial?
Oh, I was ready. I had been ready. I had been ready because it was going to trial, then it was stopped. It was going to trial. I had been ready for a while. So, you know, I wanted to testify more. I would have testified to my whole 95-page report, not even blinked, because I knew it. I knew it inside and out, and I was ready for it. So, I had to read. Um, we had located some letters written that he had written in his apartment about her. And so I had to read them to the jury, and they were submitted into evidence. And so I got to testify about that. And then we had a separate trial for my case because he still had my case pending, which he ended up taking a plea to for the fact that we did not want to put the parents did not want to go through another trial, and he had already been given a life term. So we just ended up, you know, with a plea on him, which found him guilty, which is what he deserved. So, I mean, I would have liked to put him, just added like 35 more years to his sentence, but you know, I understand the parents. I have empathy for them for not wanting to sit through another horrific. It was horrific. It was an absolutely, they had to watch the video of their daughter being
Oh
murdered.
God. Oh Jesus.
So yeah. Yeah.
What strategy did the defense have when they questioned you under cross?
They actually, I didn't even get questioned by the
Did they
defense.
say no questions, Your Honor?
They had no questions. Did he ask me any? No, he was like, he might ask me like two, but it was nothing significant. He really didn't have a great defense. I mean, I don't know if he was throwing shit at the wall to make it stick, but I can tell you, I remember at the end of everyone knew I was a detective because I had been spoken about during the trial, right? Like the air case, right? So when I came in for the reading of like the like, you know, they give the jury like the directions, there were jurors staring at me. Like there were jurors staring at me, and I knew right then in my heart, like I knew right then, like they were on my side. I just knew. I knew they were. And
Because if they're not, are they looking away?
yeah, yeah, they do. I knew there was four women who just kept looking at me, and I was like, they were on my side. They understand. And so they understand he's full of shit. And so when they went, you know, when they went out and when they read like he's guilty, those women looked right at me when they read the thing, and I was like, I just did like a little like thank you, like, you know, like just again, you're not allowed to talk to them, you're not allowed to engage with them, but I just appreciated their understanding of someone trying to bullshit the court system. So
Well, less is it? I think it's like less than 1% of attempts to use insanity as a defense are actually successful.
oh really? Yes,
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
like
look.
nothing. It rarely actually works. You know,
Yeah,
about them not giving you much and not really even fighting it that much. It reminds me of that Sarnoff piece of crap from the Boston bombing,
right,
when his defense attorney, who is a fantastic attorney, I forget her name, she was appointed by the governor. You know, you have to do so many pro bono cases, so she didn't
right,
ask for it, but she got it.
right.
And when she stood up to make her opening arguments, the first three words she said was, "He did it,"
Yep.
and then spent the rest of the time just trying to save him from the death penalty.
Right. And I think like, you know, and the defense attorney, you know, you don't really talk to them, but I think he's in the same boat. Like you have to, I don't know how he got him as a client, if he was appointed because he gets a court appointed attorney, and now once you're appointed, you are with them right till the end. So, you know, he had said that, like, there's no doubt he did it. We're not saying he didn't murder her, right? Like, there's no doubt in that. He wasn't in his right mind when he did it. So, and they get specialists, and there was two like psychiatrists in there, arguing about it. And see, I had heard about it, but I didn't get to watch that. And I really wish that would have probably had a little bit of closure for me. But I know that, I know he was full of crap. Like, just by my investigatory skills, like, you cannot be that methodical and do what he did and say he's crazy. Like, there was a process in what you have to think to harm someone and make all these plans for what you're going to do after you harm that person. Like, and
then to go back and finish.
Right. To go back and finish, right? Obsession. I'm absolutely obsessed with her.
So let me ask you a question about your experience with juries. I've been impaneled, I think, 2 times, and 1 time for a trial, and this was in Worcester County when I lived there. This was the late 90s, and it was a guy who, just an absolute piece of trash, right? Who had beat up a woman who was like 9 months pregnant. I mean, it was just, it was awful. And he was just, there were 2 lessons I took from my experience on that. Number 1, I thought, where the hell do they get these people? Because everybody involved in the case was people you never see in real life. Like, they come out of the carnivals or something. I was like, wow, this is just not, and I've been in Massachusetts forever. And I was like, I don't know where they find these places. And the other thing the conclusion I came to was, I never want to have my future being decided by 12 random people, because a few of the people who were back there in that room said shit that was crazy. And I was like, wow. One of them came in because we deliberated for, the half a day on the first day, went home and came back the next morning and wrapped up. And she was talking about how when she was at home, she was like, yeah, I was going around the internet and reading articles about it. And I wanted to know more about that defense attorney and all that. And I looked around the room and nobody batted an eye. And I said nothing because I was like, I'm not going to screw this one up, because I'm pretty sure we're going to find this guy guilty. Yeah. And we did. And I went back sat there in the courtroom and watched him. Judge gave him 6 months. And when he got it, he turned around to his dirtbag family and he shrugged and he goes, 6 months. That's nothing.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. And one of the bailiffs, a woman who's one of the bailiffs, she came over to a few of the jurors when we were leaving. She goes, hey, you guys did a good job. I just want to let you know something, that they can't share with you what the person's record is because they don't want to prejudice you. But this guy is a regular here. Yeah. And I picked up on that easily, because when the cop was on the stand, the defense attorney, the prosecutor goes, so you're on duty such and such a night. You got a call. Yes. And they told you to go where? He said, they told me to go to such and such a house at this address. Oh, and did you have to look at the map? No. Oh, and why didn't you have to look at the map? I've been there 10 times. Yeah. They do find a way to get it in there.
Right. I know. I've known him from previous experiences. Oh yeah. Like, so therefore, and juries are rough. Like, you never know what you're going to get with a jury. And so I agree. I don't want my fate being decided by a jury. I have seen some interesting juries. Right.
Do you think they get it right more than they get it wrong?
I'd like to think that just watch court every day. It's like romper room. It really is. We get a bad rap in the policing world. I would like court to be videotaped for, a couple of years and put that out in the World Wide Web and watch, because it's so backed up. It's so slow. It's, everyone has rights. Victims get treated like shit. Like, really, victims get the worst, the gamut, can you imagine being a domestic violence victim and her being pregnant, getting beaten at 9 months, right? Mm-hmm. And they treat her like she's a criminal. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. There's not enough money for these victims. There's not enough money for victim services, but yet suspects and defendants, they get everything. Like they need counseling, they need this, they need that, and they'll get that all. But here's your victim, and they get nada. Like, and it's backwards. It's definitely
This guy testified too, which was just a really, really bad idea.
Oh
But
yeah,
I had
a bad lawyer then. That was not a good lawyer on his behalf, because
I had a guest on a couple of years ago. She had just finished law school and passed the bar, and I was just asking her questions. And I said, "Are there any circumstances in which you would opt for a bench trial instead of a jury?" And she said, "Yes." She goes, "If you did something particularly egregious, the judge has heard all of that before. You might get a fairer shake from a judge than you would by horrifying 12 people."
Right.
So number one, don't do something horrific and egregious, obviously. But if you found yourself in that situation, it might not be a bad idea to go to a bench trial.
Right. And I see too, a lot of things get something that's like egregious. Those generally get they get plead out, like they plea them out. Like murder trial, you're going to trial, right? Because you're gonna throw everything. Like if you're looking at life imprisonment, that's going to a trial. Like very rarely, unless they plea it down to two, which is it depends on the crime, right? Child molestation, those ones are generally gonna get plead out, because they know what they did is so egregious that a jury is just going to look at them and be like, they're going to throw the hammer at them. Like, so they'll plead them out to save their client from doing a significant amount
from getting killed in prison. If they can.
Right. And those investigations, like, even any of us can talk to a murderer, police officers, right? Like and it takes a little bit of skill and interview and interrogation and all that stuff. But to talk to a predator is such a different ball game. Like it is a different skill, because I think it's like statistically wise, like 44% of people who commit crimes, like, heinous crimes or whatever, they will go in and speak to the police and maybe give a confession, but it's only like 21% of child predators and child molestation, because there's a difference in them, like that hardcore, like that you see on TV, interview and interrogation, like bad cop, good cop. That does not work with them. That does not work. That talking to those people is like the biggest game at chess. And I can tell you, it takes like 7 seconds for anyone to judge anybody, like the human race. Like if I met you and we were strangers, right? And I looked at you, it takes me 7 seconds to size you up, and I'm going to judge who you are. And most of the time, 78% of the time, I'm right with that judgment. So that's how quick it is. And a child predator walks into a police station to talk to a police officer, they know right away if they're going to talk or not. Like they know just by sizing you up, right? If they're going to talk to you or not. And with those guys, you're in there for hours, like hours building rapport about not even the crime. Like you want to get them to trust you and kind of like you're a friend with them. That is the game I love to play, because I think there's an art to it. Because talking to Joe Schmo who murdered, Frankie down the street because he caught him sleeping with his wife, like that's emotion, right? Like they probably want to be like, yeah, I killed him. Like what an asshole, sleeping with my wife. These child predators, no, that's a game. That's like a game. You have to play with them. And those are the investigations and the interview skills I pride myself on, because I put people away and that's my goal. Fact finding. I don't have an ego when I walk in there. Am I horrified sometimes? Yes. But I don't let any of that get in the way. I don't let my judgments, my preconceived notions get in the way, and ego is sure as the hell not getting in my way, because I want to make sure that human being goes away for the rest of his miserable life. And there's a game in that. There's a really good game in that. And Randy, it's the most interesting interview and interrogation skill to have, because I'll be sitting across from a guy who might have molested 3 girls, prepubescent children. And I have 3 girls. I have, a son. Like you want to lose your mind, and you have these notions of like, oh, this person is sick. But the fact is my goal when I'm walking in there is Yeah, I want him to like me. I want him to be my friend. I wanted to have a good rapport with him. I want him to tell me his deepest, darkest secrets, because a lot of them, there's a shame. They know it's wrong and they don't want to admit it. So you have to figure out how you can get to that. And that's by building a trust and rapport. And that takes
I
hours.
think when we were chatting last week at that networking event in Boston, I think I asked you this, but it was what what why would somebody be so stupid as to voluntarily go down to the police station to have a discussion with a detective? Because, and we talked about this too. I said, I mean, I'm from this town. I probably know half the cops and went to high school with them. But if the police ever called me and said, and they won't, but if they ever called me and said, hey,
Really?
can you come down? We just want to talk to you. Oh, about what? Oh, don't worry. You're not in any trouble. We just want to talk to you. Well, you got me on the phone right now.
Right.
What's up?
Right.
And
I
if they
think,
came to my house and knocked on the door, I'd look out the window and I'd go, hey guys, what's up? Hey, could you come outside? No, I can hear you from here. What's going on? I mean, no. The answer
yeah,
is no.
right.
Always. What makes
Me,
these guys, do they think they're smarter than you?
well, so I mean, it depends on how you go about it, right? Like maybe you have a bunch of evidence against them, and like I've had sexual assault suspects come in, right? And I generally don't arrest, even after they give a confession. I always let them leave the building first, and then I like charge them that night and go back and get them, right? So, um, but I will. A lot of them know that they're caught, so they want to give a side of their story, and it's usually denial, right? Deny, or consent. If you're dealing with like a regular rape, and I don't want to say regular, but if I'm dealing with a rape per se, right? Not of a child, like someone goes to a bar, meets a girl, slips something into her drink, and it's a drug fueled rape. A lot of them know if they're caught, right? So they want to give their story, and those type of people are very narcissistic. They have specific beliefs, so they want to give you a story. And what they're either two sides. They're either going to deny, or they're going to say to you, "No, it was consensual." And they're going to give you what they believe is consensual. And you're going to ask them from A to Z, what is their story, right? In which I love, because then I go back and I poke holes. I want them to give me a story. I want them to tell me what they thought, and what they were doing and all that other stuff. And then my job is to make sure that I poke holes in every single part of their story. Like, you see, like, no, I didn't meet her on Tinder. Well, I'm going to get a search warrant for Tinder, and I'm going to find out that that IP address is attached to your phone, right? So like they will want to give you a story, and it's going to be consent or denial. That's when you're dealing with, like, people who rape. And so lock them in. You want to lock them into that story. And then your job as an investigator is to go back and poke holes in every single one of those stories. So,
I've
and
had
then
cops. Go ahead.
and then the average, like, person who commits a crime, some of them just want to get it off their chest. Some of them just are like, you know what? I did it, and it's like a relief to them. Some people are just stupid. That's why I have a job.
There's two tips I've picked up from detective and cop friends that I've used with people, and even as a parent, where they're denying, and just saying, well, is there any reason why somebody would say that you did do it? And it throws, and I was shocked the first time I did that with somebody, is they immediately changed gears. I mean, it just throws a switch in the head. You didn't
Yeah,
do it. You didn't do it. Is there any reason why your buddy said that you did it?
right.
Why would he say that?
Or how about, what do you think should happen to the person who
Yeah.
did do it? Ask that question. That's always my favorite question.
And they say, oh,
What
it should be let off with a warning.
they're gonna minimize it, right? They're gonna minimize, like, what should happen when you know, if you killed somebody, they should go to jail, you know, and if they're like, well, you don't know like how they were feeling, and maybe it was like an emotional thing. And now you know, I already know. I'm like, all right, well, I got the right person, because they're minimizing like what they don't want to project what they think should happen to them. So, you know, then you just got to go in for the kill per se, you know, you got to go in for that, you know,
The other tip is like, if you already got them, was don't let them start denying it from the very beginning. Just say, no, don't say anything. Let me just tell you what I know already.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's more because once somebody denies it 50 times, they're like, fuck it, I'm in for a penny, in for a pound, and they dig in. But because they've actually said it out loud, if you say, wait, and then you lay out everything that you have, and then say, now what do you have to say? They may actually confess.
Right. I one of like the interview and interrogation techniques is like you move closer to them as they're getting closer to confessing. Like you kind of, and I do this with, you know, the sex offenders, the predators. Like I like to kind of like move closer, because I want them to think I'm their friend, right? I've had men hug me, crying, sobbing, hysterical. And you're just sitting there and you're like, you know, it's okay. You had to get that off your chest. I know it must be so hard. Like, she looked so good. Like, I can understand where you're coming from. When I tell you, it's the biggest game of chess. And the things that come out of my mouth, even I am like, oh God, Kelly. Like,
but how stupid do they have to be to buy that? It's almost like getting yelled at by a cadre. You know, they leave the room and then it's a completely different conversation.
I mum them, I think, to death. And so I have a trustworthy look about me, right? Like, I come in, I'm not there to judge them. And I say that, like, I'm not, why don't you tell me like what was going through your head? But I don't even start there though. I started, hey, you know, my name's Kelly. Now I'm a lieutenant, but when I was a detective, I'm a detective. You know, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, where do you work? Where do you come from? Like, you know, do you play for sports? Do you have a favorite? Like, it's building rapport, right? We don't get to the really hard stuff until the, like, almost to the end, because you want them to trust you. Like, hey, do you want a Coca-Cola? Or whatever? Do you want like something to drink? I'll grab you a coffee. Like, you know, and you just kind of go through the, how do you know Jenny? Like, how have you met Jenny? Don't even say like, do you know Jenny? How do you know Jenny? Like, where did you meet her? Oh, you met her. She was on your softball team. Oh, were you the coach? Like, and you just go through this like kind of like dynamic of like building this little, you know, house and going up and up and up. And then that's when you know, well, tell me, what did you know, if you have factual information, right? Like, you can give them the facts, or tell me like what you thought, you know, was going on this day. Okay, Jenny told me this happened. How did you take it? Like, what did you see? Because I know, Tom, you wouldn't want to hurt Jenny. You told me you really care about her. And so why would she come to me and say that, you know, this occurred? And so you just like, you got to kind of slowly walk into that, right? Because you don't want them to shut down. The funny thing is, if you look at like studies of predators, right, and you interview them, they appreciate you appreciating them as a human being. I shit you not. So that's the game I have to play. That's the hat I have to wear that day, you know? And I don't want to say I enjoy it, but I enjoy the fact of playing that game to make somebody feel comfortable enough with me to tell me their most deepest, darkest secrets, right, of their life, that is going to put them away for a significant amount of time. And then at the end, if I shake their hand, if I give them a hug, any of that, which I don't love giving a sex offender hugs, but sometimes, like, you know, I want to slam dunk it. Like, I want to like slam dunk, shake his hand. Hey, Tom, you know what? You're going to go home. I want you to go home and kind of just like relax, maybe have a drink, just calm down a little bit. Then I'm going to 1-800 the ADA and be like, this is what I got. 8 felony charges. I'm pulling a warrant right now. And Tom is going to see me in about 2 hours. Hey, Tom, remember me, Detective so-and-so? Listen, I have to take you into custody for what you told me, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? I'll book them, and I will treat them the same exact way that I treated them in that interview, So they think me as a friend. And then when they go up on the stand and testify, like, what are they going to say? Like, what is the defense attorney going to say? I was mean? Nope,
How
never.
professional you were.
Yeah, I mean, and I listen, I've had cases where what are you going to say? There's nothing you can say, because at the end of the day, I'm going to do my job right. I'm not going to let emotion get in front of me, because I want those individuals to go away for a significant amount of time. So, because they shouldn't be walking the streets. And, you know, you have to remember too, like, they know their behavior is wrong. Like, they know there's a shame and an embarrassment, and they can't control themselves at some point, right? So, and they know what in the public, how the public looks at them, right? They know that. So, yeah, they're going to come in and try to clam up and not talk to you. And so that's why you don't even get to like the assault part until you've had like 2 hours of conversation with them.
Let me ask you this. So, and I taught college for 10 years, and whenever I could squeeze it in, we were talking about civil rights or anything like that, I would always talk about interacting with the police, what your rights are, what they're not, and all of that. And one of the things that absolutely shocks college age students is cops will lie to you. Cops are allowed to lie to you. It's part of their job. And their heads explode when they hear this, because they're under the impression that the cop is not allowed to lie.
Right.
And I was like, if a cop tells you your buddy ratted on you, your buddy did not rat on you. Don't listen to a word. But so I understand why that's legal, because you're allowed to use trickery to elicit a response. But at what point does it become unethical?
I tend not to lie, like little white lies, or like I can see like a little white lie, but I do not. Tend not to use trickery. Like I'm more of like a factual information. So you have to have like some basis, right? It might not be like your friend be like, well, how does so and so know this, or how did we find this out? And maybe we have like a small inkling of something, but it's not concrete yet, right? So that's not my game. That's like Massachusetts has different kind of parameters than really everywhere else in the country. Right? Like you can, if you're doing a search warrant, you can knock and say like, if you're doing, or if you want to get into an apartment and you knock and say like, I'm the gas company, and they open it and that you stand there and you're in a uniform, right? You can use that type of trickery to garner someone's response to open the door. But when I'm doing like an interview and interrogation, like small little white lies, like you tell when you're, I don't even want to say they're small little white lies, but like, okay, in the instance of dealing with an investigation, like a kid gets killed in a car accident, right? And something absolutely horrific happens to the child. And the mother comes to you and she's sobbing and she says, did he die right away? And you know that they didn't. I'm telling mom he died right away. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not giving her that, like, little white lies to save someone from.
That's
like,
different. That's not somebody you're charging.
Yeah, but in the interview and interrogation, I don't use that aspect. I don't use that. But you can bring in, right? This is where trickery goes. You can bring in a pile of like informations of documents, right? And just slam it on the table and don't tell them what it is. It could be the fucking nightly news in there. It could be my cookbook. It could be anything. They don't know that, right? And you ain't gonna tell them. So that trickery, definitely like you can use, or you bring in like surveillance videos, like, and you just stack them on, or like photos of whatever of like they're walking down the street, and you just put them there. That trickery, that, because they're like, oh shit, what does she know? Oh my goodness, what does she have? Like, so those are kind of entertaining.
So the take home from all of this is never, ever, 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 ever talk to the police. I'm dead serious. I got friends who are cops. I love them. I'm friendly. I tip my hat. I say hello. I am not talking with you. I won't be a jerk about it, but there's no way I would be in that situation. If the police want to talk to you and you're listening, have a lawyer there. Don't say a damn word, because you can incriminate yourself when you've done nothing wrong.
I mean, I don't feel as strongly as that.
Ever. I would never consent to a search. Would you?
If I knew I had nothing, I would. If I
I
knew I had
wouldn't.
nothing, I'd be like, yeah, well, go ahead, search. What do you
Hell
gotta
no.
find
No,
my
I'm not giving you a fishing expedition.
French fry that fell under
I
my
don't
seat.
know what I don't know. Who was driving that car before you? Who was in there? Who was in there? Which high school kid was driving around with your kids and dropped some of their prescription Adderall in there, and now you have it? No thanks.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
if you're asking me for consent, it's because you don't have probable cause.
oh right, like, well, not necessarily. I like to
But it screws
so
up the case.
I don't want to write a search warrant sometimes. So I'll say, like, and listen, I'm so out of that realm now as a lieutenant. But if I stop a car, right, and there's something in that car that I see, I will request a search, right? Will you give me, consent to search a car? And I take them out of the car and I explain to them, like, listen, I see the remnants of cocaine or whatever, powder on your, whatever. There's a pipe there. I have every, will you give me consent? No. Okay, great. Well, I'm ripping up your car.
See,
apart.
I've had defense attorneys say they love it when the cop asks for consent and then says they have probable cause anyway, because it muddies the waters.
Yeah. Well, if you're a good investigator, you can explain it. The problem I find with law enforcement officers is that they don't explain it, right? Or they don't necessarily know like what their rights are, right? So or if I just, like, in the olden days, if you smelled marijuana, right? Like, hey, you got
Right.
any drugs in the car? Like, you can't even do that stuff anymore. So yeah, I mean, there's different ways to go about it. And if you don't want to give me consent, that's fine. Then I'm gonna have to lock down the car and I have to go write a search warrant and we're gonna take your car and you're gonna sit here on the side of the road and fine. I mean, that's more work for me and I'll get it done. But it really is dependent on the situation. So
Because
but
in that situation, I'd say, okay, I got time.
yeah,
I'm gonna call the dog. Okay, go get the dog. I love dogs.
yeah.
I
And
don't think I would.
That's your purview.
Or would you step out of the car, please? I will if you are telling me to. If you're asking me if I want to, my answer is no. It's like hey, do you mind if I look in your car? No. You're asking me for consent to look in the car. I'm not stupid, right?
right.
I say,
Right.
oh, if you're telling me you're going to look in it, I'm assuming you have probable cause. I won't
Yes.
resist you. I won't
Yes.
resist you at all. But if you're asking me if I mind, the answer is yes, I mind. I don't consent to any searches. We're done talking.
And you know what? That's totally fine. I'm okay with that. Like that does not get me upset. And some officers, they get upset or flustered by that.
Ego. All the guys do.
There are certain entities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that make case law all the time.
No kidding. I appreciate your time. You're awesome. Make sure you come back on again when you're writing the next chapter of your life. It's exciting to watch.
All right, sir. I will see you soon.
All right.
Have a great night. Take care.
Right. Take care, Kelly.
Thank you for listening to the Second Mess Podcast. We value your feedback. Feel free to email us your thoughts at secondmesspodcast@gmail.com. For complete information about the show and links to our social media channels, check out www.secondmess.com. Until next time, stay safe and stay connected.